Welcome into a brand new edition of Bleav in Heels Hoops. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson, joined from the Tar Heel Tribune, RL Bynum, special guest host Tyler Zeller in the house. Episode number 3. If you're just now finding us, we'll be on throughout the season, helping you with all things Tar Heels hoops. Last night, the Tar Heels defeated the Pitt Panthers. The first time Hubert Davis has defeated Jeff Capel and the Pitt Panthers. He was 0-3 going to the contest. Final score 70-59, if I'm not mistaken here. And we'll just get into it as I pull up the box score. You guys, thoughts on the game? Let's start off with you, Tyler. Thoughts on the contest? It never really felt like once Carolina took the lead, it never really felt like they relinquished control of the game. It felt like Pitt was kind of chasing the rest of the night. What were your thoughts on the game from last night?
Yeah, I thought it was a great game for us. I think we showed some toughness to be able to hold on to a lead. We've had some issues this year. We either chase or we get ahead and we can hold on to it. So it was nice to see him be able to get that lead and hold on. Pitt made a couple runs at him, but got it down to, that 4-6 range, and we were able to push it back up pretty quickly, make some big shots. Fun to see Ingram, who had a struggling night scoring. He just really showed how impactful he can be with rebounding and just every little thing on defense. So fun to see this team and how many pieces they have that can fit together to be able to get those wins.
That was the thing that stood out to me, that the depth that they have this year. It looked like Elliot Cadeau maybe hurt his back or something on a layup and had to go out for a little bit. Seth Trimble comes in and it's like picks it right up. So I don't know. Like I said, Seth Trimble's been lifting weights clearly in the offseason because he's a more of an explosive player. How tall is Seth Trimble?
Like I don't know officially. 6'4", something like that.
He's 6'4".
Super athletic.
Yeah, I thought he was shorter than that because he's standing.
He might be.
How tall is Cadeau? Because they were standing beside each other. I was trying to figure it out last night watching the game.
Cadeau's shorter.
Yeah, so I'm thinking he's 6'1".
Maybe 6 foot. I don't know.
Yeah, he's out here trying to
maybe he just looks 6'4" because he jumps so high.
Yeah, he's like Dominique Wilkins. Like wow, he's listed.
RL.
What's he listed, RL?
Yeah, Cadeau 6'1" and Trimble 6'3".
Wow. Okay, so 6'3". Okay, so even so, like that's still just amazing. He's just gotten really good around the rim. Your thoughts, initial thoughts, RL, on the game last night? Carolina victorious, moving to 2-0 in the ACC, 70-59 winners over Pitt.
Well, it was ugly, that's for sure, but sure beats losing 2 games to Pitt by combined 3 points, which was maddening last season. I mean, Carroll had the fewest possessions in the game this season, fewest points in the season, but they matched Pittsburgh's physicality, which is what they did not do against a much better Kentucky team. So that was impressive. Also impressive was that Armando Bacot has struggled in those kind of games before, but he responded well last night and probably the best he's done in one of those games that is so physical. So that was impressive. You're touching on Ingram, and that's what difference he makes as opposed to a player who might be one-dimensional. He had his toughest shooting night of the season, scored a season low, but that didn't matter because he played such good defense on Blake Henson, held him to 11 points, 4 of 16 shooting, and had a career-high rebounding total. So didn't need his points necessarily last night because he was doing so much more.
Yeah, I think the Henson defense was unbelievable because he's a guy who can score in loads. And, it really made me nervous. We kept getting down to that 4-point lead. And all of a sudden it's like, all right, is Henson going to hit a couple threes that puts him over the top? And we responded really well to be able to keep him off. Thankfully, he missed some, but part of your strategy is frustrate a guy enough that when he does get an open one, he can't make that either. As opposed to last year, I felt like guys got so comfortable, they'd make an extra couple threes that just made it hard to beat them.
And I think Pitt was the top 3-point shooting team in the ACC coming into that game last night. So for them to hold them, as I've got the box score pulled up here for those that are watching on YouTube, they held them to 17% from 3, 5 for 29 for the game, which if you're a Carolina fan, you know that guarding the perimeter has been kind of a thorn in our side the past decade. I mean, like even going into like Roy Williams, where it was just like there's always, well, usually it's when we're at home. Usually we're at Chapel Hill. Is this part of the year? Somebody Wofford or somebody comes in here, and it's like one kid that's like dreamed of playing in the Dean Dome his entire life, and he goes off for like 35 or something, and it's the whole like stat line and everything else. This being on the road and us playing Pitt, who has been, they've had our number the past couple of years since Hubert's taken over. Again, he hadn't beaten Jeff Capel until last night. And just looking through the box score for me, the one thing that stood out to me last night again was the play of RJ Davis. He didn't score 20. So he broke that streak that he had going on with Tyler Hansborough in terms of most consecutive 20-point games in Carolina, or since Tyler did in 08-09. I thought he played very efficient. 15 points, 3 rebounds, 4 assists. Just had complete control. Whenever there was a run, it felt like it was RJ that would come up with a shot, like a 3 or something, to kind of stymie the push that Pittsburgh was going on. And then the play of Harrison Ingram. Harrison Ingram had a rough night last night. 2 of 14. There was a stretch where he was like 0 for 9, 0 for 10 at one point. But I love the fact that he stayed aggressive. 15 rebounds. That helped out considerably on the boards. It was just all over the place. Ended up with 7. But I love the fact that he's kind of that combo forward we haven't really had in a while that can post you up. Like, he intentionally will back you down, back to the basket, and get into the paint and score, which in today's college basketball, to be honest, is kind of rare to see it. It's really weird. Like, when I'm watching him do it, and I'm so used to seeing it being 45, I grew up inside-outside type game. Like, I'm used to you throw it in, you kick it out. And to see Harrison the way he'll literally clear the floor and back a guy down and go down in it. To me, I would think, Tyler, I'll ask you this because I know you got experience doing it. That's got to be somewhat demoralizing to a defense to watch a kid just kind of back somebody down on your team and just constantly score over top of them from 5-6 feet out. Like, what's that feel like? And
I think the biggest thing with Harrison, though, is he's so good from inside and out. And so if you put a big on him, he's going to step out and hit a 3. If you put a wing or somebody or same size or smaller than him, he can post them up. And so it does get demoralizing in the way of, like, how do I guard this guy? Because you can't put a big on him and stop the post ups, but you can't you put a big on, you stop the post ups, but you don't stop the threes. You can't put a guard on him because then he'll just post you up. And so you get in this kind of conundrum of, like, who do we put on him? And there's not many guys in college basketball that can guard that, guard a big and guard a wing and be able to have that versatility. And so I think he's really good at that, because if you have a guard on him, you got a double team and he can throw out. If you got a big, you think you can guard him and he can shoot that little right hand hook shot. So makes it really complicated. I think Armando's done a great job of giving him some space on those post ups, which is, you got to give him a lot of credit for, because it takes away some of his post ups too. So and then those guys have all done a great job of, knocking down shots when Armando posts up and they double him. And it's going to be interesting how teams guard us going forward, because with Ingram posting up, Armando posting up, you got to double, you got to come off. But then RJ's so hot. I mean, who do you focus on? Do you take RJ away, or do you take up the post up, or take away the post ups?
And that's not even counting, like, whenever eventually Cormac Ryan's going to come back to the mean in terms of his 3-point shooting, that's going to be there. Jalen Washington is starting to show reasons why he got pulled by Hubert, last year, and basically is still here. Like, that dude is going to be a problem. He kind of reminds me of Bryce Johnson a little bit with a jumper, with a 3-pointer, which is scary. If he fully grows into his frame and takes the leap that Bryce did from junior year to senior year, where, at that point, Bryce was out here doing that 40-point, 20-rebound monster FSU game with ease. I remember watching the game. It felt like he could have scored 80 in that game. Like, he was just in complete control. Jalen's kind of realizing the strength of his abilities at this point, and he's been in the weight room at UNC. So it's like you're starting to see. He had a block from behind last night that I loved. Just super active. Armando shot 2 threes last night. Like, they literally left him alone. Like, there was no one there. He really didn't have a choice. But I don't know. It's like the way the team is made up. Everyone seems to know their roles, and, like, when they come in, what they're supposed to do. And the past couple of years, it felt like they didn't have enough people to fill roles. So it was like some people maybe were doing multiple things they didn't need to do. I wish that they would kind of let the whole, and they being the media, let the Caleb Love thing just kind of go. Like at this point, like I feel like every time we're on TV, someone has to mention how Caleb Love is doing at Arizona, and I don't think that's fair to Caleb or the team. You know what I mean? Like I think it was the best thing for both sides. Both teams are in the top 10. Both are playing exceptionally well. I don't know. That's one of my pet peeves that going into that game where it was like the announcers had to again mention that Caleb Love used to be here, and now he's in Arizona, and they'll bring up the graphic and everything else. I'm just like, come on, man. We're like 8-9 games into the year.
But last night they were mostly talking about how good both of them were doing, like you were saying.
Yeah,
it was good for both of them. I mean, I don't think anybody. I think we moved past the point now where it's like, how good could they be if they still had Caleb Love and RJ? Like we saw last year how it didn't work together. We saw the year before how it did, but I think Brady Manick was a large part of that. So
yeah, they got, and that's what the thing people forget with that team that made it that run to the Final Four was that they were having those issues before those 3 weeks. Like the 2 years that we just had of the team with the roster, they were having the same problems. We just kind of forgot about it because we had that 3 week run in March where everybody was feeling good. And we're like, well, forget all that else stuff. They figured it out. So, and then we got to the next season. It was like, oh, no, they didn't figure it out. It's still the exact same problem. So, again, I love the fact if this is the way we're going to do college basketball going forward in Chapel Hill in terms of relying on the transfer portal, having a couple of key freshmen, 5-star kids that come in, key upperclassmen that remain. Because I think that's going to be the trick in college basketball. Like, what teams are going to have guys that stay put for 2-3 years and can build chemistry with each other instead of this microwave, like how some of these teams are getting creative where they're just pulling them all out of the portal and almost AAU style, and they're just kind of throwing them out there. It makes it hard to follow. Let me ask you guys this, because I was thinking about this when I was watching this game. Back in the day when I was younger, and we're talking like way back, like when the ACC had 8 schools, before Florida State was even here. Like I remember those Jefferson Pilot quadruple headers like on Saturdays where you got to watch all 8 teams playing against each other from like noon till like 8 or 9. They do them like in the middle of the regular season. And I felt like I knew the roster of every team in the ACC because I watched them all. I was a Carolina fan, but I would watch a Wake Forest Virginia game on a Wednesday night, or I'd watch a State and whatever State and whoever game, Georgia Tech, and like I knew Kenny Anderson and Brian Oliver and Chris Corciani and all these dudes, and like I feel like I don't know that because I was sitting there watching this game last night, and other than the Federico kid, because I remembered his name like rhymed from last year, I couldn't remember any of these kids on the Pitt team. I was sitting there looking through it, I'm like, I don't remember hardly any of these guys. The Diaz Graham, maybe Federico was the one dude that I remembered because of his name, and I guess watch it. RL, I know you cover it. Tyler, you've played it. You're broadcasting it now. How different does college basketball feel to you guys post-COVID with the new changes, NIL, transfer portal and stuff? And is it for the better or for the worse?
I think Hubert is taking advantage of the better in grabbing these veteran players, and you have to like the way he's embraced that. I do miss the time when you had a freshman come in and you'd see his progress over 4 years and get to know them and all that sort of dynamic. But it's just not going to happen. And you're talking about not knowing the league. It's going to get worse next season with Stanford and Cal.
Yeah.
So, just get used to it.
I'm looking forward to that Carolina Stanford 10:30 tip off on a Tuesday night out in Cali next year. That's going to be incredible.
I think the biggest thing you got right now, the transfer portal has gotten out of control. And I think the NCAA was planning on one. So they've done the mental whatever to allow people to do second, third, and fourth. And now they're trying to tighten that up, allow one transfer. I think now we got a court case, so who knows where it's going to go with that. Yeah. But if it stays where you can only transfer one time, I think it's really important. You're going to start to see one-time transfers be 10 times as important as a high school player, which makes it really hard to recruit because you don't know who you're going to get. High school players are going to have to wait and all that. And because a lot of times once you have that one-time transfer, say you get a sophomore who's transferred already, you got them for 3 years, basically, unless they want to sit out.
Yeah.
And so that can make them a lot more important. If the court case allows people to transfer as many times as they want, that gets really complicated. But I do think Hubert's done a great job of, embracing the transfer portal and embracing NIL, and just bringing in guys who may only be here a year or two, and then trying to fill in with, Jalen Washington and Seth Trimble and those guys who can be really good role players and have a huge upside.
Because I think that's what you're going to need in the end.
You're going to need Clemson as an example. This is his third school. So
which one?
There's a lot. And I think what I'm looking forward to is the possibility that the players can't go directly from high school to the NBA, and just not so much one and done players where you only see them one season and they're done.
I don't know if we'll ever get to that point, though.
Yeah,
I think they're going to go the other way. I think they're going to. Well, they've already so they got a G League team now you can go to straight out of high school for 1 year.
Yeah, and we've seen some kids start to get drafted from off that Ignite team the past couple of drafts too. So
they haven't had a lot of success with those guys. I mean, they've had great potential, but the hard part is it's so young. I mean, those guys, they haven't done a lot yet, but most of them are 19 or 20. And most guys don't play really, really well until 24, 25, 26. And so they haven't had a lot of success yet, but at the same time, that's to come. And so it'll be interesting in 3-4 years if that becomes the new thing, or if, they have that negotiation, because with NIL now you can pay college guys. So some college guys are staying, which is helping college basketball, but you also have that other way where you can skip college altogether.
Yeah. It's really, the money is what, well, I don't mind that they're playing the players like that. That doesn't bother me at all. It's more, I'm curious if it's going to revert back to the way it used to be back in the day with the NBA draft, where older guys are getting drafted much earlier, as opposed to what it is now, where younger guys are getting drafted off of potential, and then it might work, it might not work. Whereas back in the day, you drafted a dude that you knew could immediately contribute. That was 22, 23, could hop right in. I mean, because all the NBA was grown men. Now it's like a mix of younger kids and stuff. Like, I keep forgetting LaMelo Ball is not even, I think he's 23, 22, 23, and he's already played 4 years in the league. So, I mean, it's like you kind of, the paradigm has shifted to the younger players. It takes longer for them to develop, and they play much longer too. There's a couple of dudes on this Carolina team I think will play at the next level. I don't know if some of them will get drafted this round or that round or whatever, but I think they'll find a home in some spots. Honestly, Harrison Ingram's the first name that comes to mind when I watch his game. I'm like, that translates to NBA like today. Like he can get his own shot off, like all that. It looks good. Elliott, I think, came in thinking that might be a situation for him. He hasn't really shown that he can be the scorer, but he hadn't really had to with this roster so far. So I'm hoping he stays a second year. And RJ Davis, I think, has gone from being a fringe second round type guy to, I can't see how he stays out the first round at this point, the way he's playing. Like, he's just playing out of his mind. He's so confident with his shot that he's gotten to a point where there's been a few shooters in Carolina history where I'm like, as soon as he lets that thing go, I'm like, that's money. And he's there. He's kind of been there all year, but he's really the past couple of weeks. Like, he's just so confident in his shot. And I think the team is too. Like, is it fair to say that this is RJ Davis's team, not Armando's team?
I think so
for sure. Now. And I think Armando said that before the season. So
yeah, we didn't believe him. Yeah. we didn't believe Armando when he said it. He was just being nice, but maybe he was right. He had seen it in practice. It was like, you know what? Let me just kind of, hitch my wagon to this train and see where it goes. But I think they're going to go as far as RJ Davis can take them. If you're just joining us, Bleav in Heels Hoops here on the Bleav Podcast Network, brought to you by Bet Online. And actually, before I forget, because I did it the last time, I forgot to read I only spent 19 minutes and didn't. I was supposed to do it in the first two. So sorry, Bleav. Sorry, Bet Online. All the major sports are in action this week with the college football playoffs ready to kick off. Bet Online is your number one destination for all your sports wagering info, including news for pro football, the NBA, upcoming fights, and NHL games this season. Head to the website today to get in action and see all the updated odds for the week. Remember to use the promo code Bleav, BLEAV. to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online where the game starts. Real quick before we hop out of here, Carolina's got another tough matchup coming up Saturday against the Clemson Tigers. Carolina's ranked 8th in the nation this week. Clemson's ranked number 16. Guys, thoughts on this matchup? This has been kind of more even the past couple of years with Clemson. Well, with Carolina being so up and down, and Clemson kind of getting right. We're kind of used to being the ones that use Clemson as our punching bag, and I don't know if we can really say that at the moment. Although this is a different team, Carolina, so maybe we revert back to the way we used to be. RL, starting with you, give me your initial thoughts as we're 3 days out from the Saturday matchup, Carolina and Clemson, and I'll get the times and everything for it.
Yeah, this is one of the better Clemson teams we've seen in the past few years. That PJ Hall's back. He's playing well, averaging more than 20 points a game. And then they got Joe Girard from Syracuse, which, how crazy is that? Players going from one league team to another. That just seems weird. And that's happened throughout the league. But, I think that'll be a formidable game. Luckily for Carolina, the students won't be back at Clemson. So much like the Pittsburgh game, maybe the crowd won't be as much of a factor. Who knows? But that's always a tough place to play. Carolina's had some classic games there. You remember the Ellington shot one year. So, I think it'll be a battle.
It's a noon game. It looks like it's going to be on ESPN2. Clemson's 11-1, 1-0 in conference play. Carolina's 10-3, 2-0 in conference play. I'm looking at Clemson. Their last 5, they lost to Memphis on December 16th, but other than that, they've won 4 of their last 5 games. Look pretty evenly. Matt Clemson scores 82 points a game. They're on a 2-game win streak. Like I said, PJ Hall's averaging 20 points per game. I think it's second in the ACC right now behind RJ Davis. He's going to be probably the guy to keep an eye on. Tyler, your thoughts on this as we're a few days out from it. It's a Saturday noon tip-off on ESPN2. North Carolina taking on 16th ranked Clemson down in Clemson, South Carolina.
So first of all, I think noon games are hard.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
As a player, I mean, you're going to have a meeting at 8 a.m., which, for normal people with normal jobs like me, and now that I'm retired, 8 a.m. is nothing. But for when you're playing a game at 9 p.m., it may be 1 o'clock before you go to bed, and that's the schedule you're usually on. So 8 a.m. is very early in the basketball world for any kind of meeting. Noon's early for a game. Unfortunately, and fortunately, it depends on which way it goes for us. Usually whoever punches first wins. If you can go on a 8-0 run in the first 10 minutes, usually you can hold on to it with a noon game. So getting off to a quick start is going to be huge for them. We got to be prepared to play right from the tip because it can be a little sloppy when you start. To Clemson, I think PJ Hall is the key. Armando will probably have to guard him. He struggled a little bit with 3-point shooters. PJ shooting great from 3, I think 42%. And so he's going to have to get out. He's done much better this year at getting out and challenging that and then being able to help on the drives and other things. So I think the key is just going to be able to contain him. He may get 20 points, but make it a difficult 20. We can't be giving up second chances the way we've done against some bigger teams. We can't let PJ get hot from 3.
That's a good point that you brought up that I didn't even think about in terms of the noon start time. Is it hard for the home team too at noon? Does it matter, or is it more rougher for the away team?
In some ways, honestly, the away team's a little easier because when you're the away team, you're in a hotel, you meet in a ballroom, you kind of get up at 7:45, walk downstairs, you got breakfast and film and whatever else you got to do to prepare. When you're the home team, you sleep in your own bed in a dorm, but then you got to drive to the gym. You have that meeting and all that stuff. And so it gets a little more challenging because you got to get up a little earlier. And then, again, on the away team, you can just walk back up your hotel room. The home team, you got to go back to your dorm or sleep on the couch in the locker room, whatever. And so, I say sleep. Well, everybody takes naps. Except for a few people, but I don't know why, just something we've all done. So, and then to RL's point, the crowd will be very interesting because I do think they start school back next week with Carolina coming in. a lot of times I found with big games or, if we had a bigger game right before break was over, everybody just come back early. They come back,
Yeah.
celebrate or go to the game at noon on Saturday and then do their college thing that night. And so it'd be a way to have fun for a little while before school gets rolling and all that. But the crowd will be interesting. If they show up, I mean, we used to joke, and I think it's true. Clemson was a 15-point difference when I was playing at home versus away. And that was
Wow.
when we had the streak when we were at home and everything. But they're a different team at their place. And it'll be interesting to see how they play.
I haven't been to Clemson since I was a kid. My cousin played baseball for Clemson when I was like 8 or 9 years old. He ended up getting drafted by the Dodgers and eventually played in Japan. But we would go down there to Clemson to watch them play. And I've always remembered, I don't know if it's still the case because it was so long ago when I went, but first of all, Clemson's in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing around it. Like, it's literally a college town and that's it. There's nothing there. And when you get there, the yellow lines in the street change to paw prints. Like, as you're driving into campus, is that still there? Do they still have that going on?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
But this will be my first game covering a game there, so I'm looking forward to seeing Little John Coliseum and what that's like.
Oh man, Little John gets loud too, especially on TV. And to Tyler's point, with the game being Saturday at noon, I could see students coming back Thursday, Friday, getting back into their dorms and stuff, getting, doing what college kids do. And then Saturday at noon, they're in Little John ready to go. Probably didn't even sleep Friday night. And
college students, really?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's nothing to do in Clemson, South Carolina. So yeah, I could see that being an environment. Actually, Oakland Zoo was pretty loud last night with the students not there. It felt like there was a pretty good fan experience going on in there, and they didn't even have it full with like students because they're still out. So
RL, were you there last night?
Say that.
RL, were you there last night?
Oh no, I wasn't there last night.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if you went to that one or not.
Yeah.
So those midweek games are hard for me to get to.
I can imagine.
I'm just happy it was a 7 o'clock tip. They didn't give us the 9 o'clock tip again. Because it feels like Carolina's been getting a lot of 9 o'clock tip offs with all the traveling around and stuff they've done. So Carolina emerges victorious, 2-0 in the ACC. They're actually, I know it's early, but Carolina, Wake, Clemson, Miami State, Georgia Tech are all 2-0 or 1-0 in the ACC. And then you've got a group, Duke, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, that are 1-1. That Notre Dame team is weird because I've seen them play horribly and then they've played well. So I don't know what to make of them yet.
That Virginia game was mystifying.
Yeah.
I don't know if Virginia's really that bad or Notre Dame just got lucky, but that was a lot of it has to do with the new coach. Game.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the new coach. I mean, first year of the coach, complete strategy change. Yeah. Shrewsbury is going to be I played for Coach Shrewsbury in Boston for a little while. He's a great guy, great coach, but he's going to demand a lot. My brother, having played for Coach Bray, was a great coach, but defensively he did not demand much. He demanded a lot of scoring, a lot of but Coach Shrewsbury is going to do a good job with them. But I think when they come together and they hit shots, they're going to be hard to beat. But it's the first year, and do you have the buy-in yet?
Yeah.
Without, it's not his guys. It'll be interesting. Notre Dame.
What do you guys think? I know it's still early, but this has been kind of an ongoing thing the past couple of years in terms of ACC perception. I've always said 2019 was the peak for ACC to me up to this point in terms of us being the greatest college basketball conference going on or whatever. 3 1 seeds that year. I think there's only 3 teams ranked in the top 25. Carolina's the highest at 8. I think Duke was at 14 and Clemson's at 16, and that's it. Nobody else is currently ranked. Is there a team that you think should be ranked in the top 25? I'm sitting there looking at like Wake Forest at 10-3, 2-0 in the conference, but I don't know who they've played. And Miami was ranked a little bit earlier in the year, and they've fallen out the top 25. Is there a team that you're kind of keeping an eye on that you feel like could be a potential top 25 team over the next couple of weeks that's not currently ranked in the ACC?
I think the Deeks might be that team, or Miami. I think Miami's better than they've shown so far. Coming into the season, I thought Miami would be pretty good, and they still might be.
I agree. I think the big thing with figuring out how good the ACC is unfortunately up to this point we haven't won a lot of big games from those teams lower in the conference. And I think that's where you really show how deep your conference can be is, you go play those Bahama tournaments or wherever. And if you're winning against other conferences, you really show, all right, this conference has got something. Carolina's had some big ones. Duke's had some big ones. I'm not sure Clemson's played a lot of people, but they've beat them really well. And so, unfortunately, a lot of those other teams have lost, the SEC, ACC challenge, all that. And so we haven't had great showings against that. I do think the ACC is very, very strong. But that pre-conference schedule shows a lot about the strength of the conference.
Looks like Clemson, their biggest win was at number 23 Alabama so far this year. And then, of course, they've got Carolina coming in on Saturday, so that would become the biggest one. They actually they're at Miami tonight, 8 o'clock on ESPN. So they got a little stretch, yeah. And then they got to go to Blacksburg right after us next week. So they got at Miami, host North Carolina, at Virginia Tech. So we'll find out a lot about this Clemson team over the next 3 games.
We're not the only one with a crazy schedule, then, huh?
No. And then I was about to say, I'm going to go look over at ours real quick because besides Clemson, you got at NC State January 10th, and then hosting Syracuse and Louisville through the middle of January. So, and then at Boston College. So actually, it's a good little part of the schedule for Carolina where they get past this Clemson game. It looks pretty good. I'm not really worried.
Syracuse game's a noon game again, though.
Syracuse is a noon game. You're right. I think that's next Saturday. So that's another Saturday noon game. Then 2:15. That must be Saturday on January 20th at Boston College. It's a 2:15 tip off. Then you start getting to the meat later on, really after the first Duke contest. It's Duke, Clemson, Miami back to back to back. And then you got Miami State, Notre Dame, Duke to close the year. But really, the schedule is pretty manageable from what I'm looking at on here. They got through the non-conference pretty much unscathed. I mean, if there was one game I wish we could have back, it's the Villanova game probably. But other than that, UConn controlled that game from top to bottom, so I'm not too upset about that. The Kentucky game was kind of a back and forth too, but the Villanova game is the one game I'm like, we should have got that one. That's the one we probably should have won, and we didn't. But they've got some top 25 wins in here too from the non-conference. They beat Tennessee, it was number 10. They beat Oklahoma, it was pretty convincingly. That's number 7. They were undefeated at the time. So
Oklahoma's one I'm interested to watch the rest of the year because their schedule gets tougher now.
Who was that?
Yeah, I mean, Carolina's still got 7 more quad 1 opportunities, and they've already bagged 3 quad 1 wins. So they've got a chance to really improve their NCAA resume. I mean, right now they're probably a high 4 seed, but they win these 2 games against Clemson and State, they probably are up to a 3 seed, and maybe even higher.
Yeah,
Duke looked good last night, though. So
I heard. Yeah, I didn't watch it. I flipped over to something else, but I got to start paying attention to Duke. It was that part of the year where I got to force myself to sit down and watch Duke games and State games and stuff. So we'll stop it there.
Duke finally put it together last night. So
see, that's what I didn't want to hear.
Yeah.
I was hoping they were going to kind of be disjointed,
because sometimes you get games you put it together. It'll be interesting if they can put 2 or 3 together here. But I
need to see them. Were they on the road last night or were they in Cameron?
That was in Cameron.
Okay, because it's always a little different. And I want to see them on the road because it seems like that's when they this year's team seems to kind of implode a little bit, like that Georgia Tech game a couple weeks ago. So we'll stop it here. We'll be back next week with a new episode after they play Clemson and after they have played NC State. Matter of fact, because NC State will be. Well, actually, maybe not, because NC State will be Wednesday the 10th. So we might be back maybe before that game to preview it and to recap Clemson. So maybe Monday, Tuesday, somewhere in there, we'll be back with a new episode. But you can find these episodes on the Tar Heel Tribune YouTube channel. You can find them on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel at youtube.com/at Tobacco Road Sports Radio. The audio's on the Bleav Podcast Network. Just go to Bleav's website or Google Bleav in Hills Hoops. The episodes will pop up for you. Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Luminary, all the major Anchor, all the major podcast platforms were there, so you can hear us on audio throughout the week as well. But we're gonna head out of here.
One last thing, we got RJ needs one more 3 to hit 200. Passed RJ Davis last night.
And I think I just saw that Armando passed 200 points, or he reached 2,000 points last night. So, yeah,
he's
that's
got
incredible.
900 and some more to go to catch Hansborough.
Is that mathematically possible? Like, I don't know what he'd have to do to get. How many games are left? Actually.
And no, he can't get there.
No,
unless he starts out.
Unless he starts 40 a game or something like over the next.
He'd have to petition for another season to do that.
Let me give it to him right now.
Yeah, for real. They might be like, yeah, come on, stay one more year. So we'll stop it right there. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. You've been listening and watching the Bleav in Hills Hoops podcast here on the Bleav Podcast Network, brought to you by Bet Online.